This is a different opening to the show this week. If you listened to our last episode that came out on Friday, you heard us retell the story of how Turbis the Porg became canon. And one of the things that Sam mentioned is that the name Turbis is actually a Tuckerization of our dog's name, Buster. Earlier this afternoon, Buster became one with the Force due to heart failure. It's a sad, hard day for Tatooine Sons, but I want to brag for just a second about what you are getting ready to hear. Sam and Nathan are podcasting professionals. As hard as this day has been, they wanted to be sure we released our regular episode this week. And I want to say how proud I am of my sons. I hope you enjoy our conversation. It served to be a much needed distraction today from the cares of life. But this is also exactly what all of these stories that we love so much are supposed to be. This is Tatooine Sons.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the Porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that Porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was lit.
We cosplayed.
Yeah,
Because of
somehow
Han.
we got it all in time.
Yeah, so maybe Nate. I thought you had the classiest of the costumes.
We did, of course.
With the Court of Owls look. Looked
Yes.
fantastic. Sam, you well, we'll
Mom-
come back. We'll come back to you in a second on that one. I did the Cobb Vanth.
You did?
I had including a shave.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
what do you
looks
guys
weird.
think about Dad without a beard? It's been a long time. I don't know if you can even remember me without one. Do you?
Yeah, it's been a long
weird.
time.
It's really weird to see this.
Yeah, so we've got that. And then Sam, you did wear the Riddler costume
did.
from the new
Well,
Batman.
So there's a little bit of a story.
Okay, make it
behind
quick. Well,
I
before we
will-
do that, we'll come back to it. All right, thank you. Welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast, the only fan podcast to name a candid Star Wars creature and be endorsed by Ryan Johnson. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation, that there is a story. It is written on our souls, and these myths speak to that story. And that is why we were talking about Nate and his big brother Sam, but not the Nate and the Sam that you're probably thinking of. What we know so far about the Rings of Power, and a return of our Star Wars grab bag. I am David. I am the dad.
Hi, Dad.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm honored to be joined every week by my two amazing sons. First, Nate, what do you got going this week?
Well, Uncharted did retread some classic adventure movie tropes, but who cares? It was still fun.
It was
Yeah.
a blast. Sam, what about you?
Lord of the Rings fans are beginning to make Star Wars fans look civil.
Yeah, it's getting ugly out there right now. And we don't have a Star Wars series to break down, but we do have some Star Wars to talk about. So we're going to do that on the show. But we've teased it already. So really quick, 60 seconds,
I will do it
Sam.
as fast as I can.
Celebrate your amazing mother.
Yes, she's awesome. So, like the couple days before, I tried to, I went to the thrift stores and got everything I needed for my costume. In fact, Monday before Pensacon, I ordered the mask that I needed.
For the Riddler wears
Riddler
in
mask, right.
the Batman movie.
Right. And I paid extra for one day shipping. And long story short, it wasn't going to get there until Saturday, the day I needed it. So we decided I would show up anyway in what I had. I'd be looking like Edward Nashton as opposed to just the Riddler without the mask. And y'all were in your costumes and stuff. And then we went to the panel. It was
Went to Richard Dreyfuss.
Richard Dreyfuss, which was
It's actually pronounced
interesting.
Dreyfuss. I just said that
Dreyfuss.
to be silly.
Okay,
But
whatever. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who he was. Yes, I know. But
I'm so disappointed with myself as a father right now. Anyway.
so we're walking back out to the parking lot, and lo and behold, Mom rolls up And she's like, I got your mask, because it came in real early that day.
You have an amazing mother.
Honestly,
really
a smaller package than I thought it was going to be.
Drove 45 minutes to Pensacola to bring
Just
the
to
mask
drive
and
back.
45 minutes to drive back.
Pretty
What an
much, yeah.
awesome
She was pretty
mom. So if you're new to the show, thank you so much for
Yes,
listening.
thank you.
We are super excited to have you as being introduced to the Tatooine Sons family. And if you're a returning listener and you're one of our regulars, thank you so much for being a part of the Tatooine Sons family. We definitely appreciate that. This episode is sponsored by cufflinks.com, as they have been for since October. They have over 3,000 items on their website, from Star Wars, Marvel, DC, The Lord of the Rings, and NFL, NCAA, Major League Baseball, the National Basketball Association, which did not really have a trailer during their All-Star game.
They juked us out.
And everything else that you could think of. We're honored to be sponsored by this amazing company. So thank you so much for cufflinks.com for doing that. If you are new to the show, please follow the show on your podcast app. You're pressing that little button that's on the app that you're listening to us on right now as you're hearing my voice is really the most important thing we can ask you to do if you like this show, because then you get updated on the show every single week. We've got a new episode coming out on Friday. It will be with our friend Dominic Pace, who played Gecko in chapters 1 and 3 of The Mandalorian. Yes. And he's also just a generally pretty awesome guy. Yeah. And I had a really interesting conversation with him. I'm excited for you guys to hear. So that will come out on Friday. Is that going to cover everything?
I think so.
Did we do it? We didn't miss anything?
No.
Why don't we talk about what we're going to talk about instead of talking about what we're going to talk about?
Yes, exactly.
I flipped it.
You did.
It worked?
It did. All right.
Work, yes.
BB Nate. We've been doing Sam at the front end for the last 7 months. BB Nate's going to go first this week.
Yeah, after being stuck in developmental purgatory for almost 15 years, Uncharted finally released in theaters, and it was honestly better than I could have expected. So let's talk about that.
Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Yeah, I can fly.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
The people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use? There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
That man has no limits.
Nate and Sam is actually what kind of drew me into the Uncharted series, because I started, funny enough, I was at somebody else's house, and the only game that I was semi-interested in playing, and I was at their house the whole day, was Uncharted 4. And this was before I played any of the Uncharted games.
Oh, that's cool.
So I started that, and I noticed, I'm like, wait, Sam and Nate and the brothers, and I'm like, this is really cool because they mean so much. And I'm like, well, this is a cool dynamic.
Yeah, that is cool.
And so I finally started to play the other games. I still need to finish 3 and then 4, of course. I finally get to 4 and be able to finish it. But yeah, I loved it. Yes. So let me get y'all's rating of 1 to 10 sentimental rings.
Sentimental rings. I'm going to have Sam go first.
7.5, I think. I mean, it was solid. It was fun. Wasn't anything remarkable, you know, I kind of was thinking about it the night after we watched it. I'm like, I like that movie a lot. It was fun, but frankly, I'd be okay if I didn't go back and watch it. You know, not that it's a bad movie by any means. It's just, I've seen it. It was cool, and I'm happy with that.
I would say, it's probably smack dab in the middle between the critics and the fan ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics have it in 39 or 40, and fans have it at 90, and I'm going to put it right around a 70, or 7 out of 10. At this, it was fun. It was awesome. I will go and see if the sequels, because I think they're definitely going to have those.
I mean, with the impressive box office.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that on Movie Moments a little bit more. But yeah, absolutely. I would definitely go back and see it again. It was a lot of fun, but I don't think it's one of those that we've got to go back and see in the movie theater next week or anything.
Well, Mom still has to see it, and she wanted to.
And she wants to, but then again, that's one of those, okay, Mom wants to see it. Yeah, let's go see it.
Yeah.
It's that kind of
movie. Yeah, I'll give it just because so many of the little Easter eggs meant so much to me, I'll give it an 8. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was just fun the whole time. But let's ask the age-old question: was this a good Uncharted movie, in my semi-informed opinion, because I haven't played all the games, but I've played most. Yes, it was a lot of fun, and it felt like I was watching the cutscenes in an Uncharted game, because that was what I was hoping for. Now, I of course haven't played all the games, only the first two, in fact, but from what I can gather, this was a good homage and a new take even on Uncharted. It's always difficult to adapt a 16 or so hour game into 2 hours, so they had to make a new story for these characters that only touched on some of the things from the games. Now, let's talk about the hot topic of this movie. The casting.
Really? Is that the one that everybody's talking about right now?
A lot of people don't like what they chose. Okay. I'm going to get to y'all's opinion. So we had Tom Holland as Nathan Drake. Now, what did y'all think of this casting as people who have never played the game before?
Well, I mean, I have no idea what the character of Nathan's supposed to be like. So I thought it was great. I thought the dynamic between him and Mark was awesome. Or Sully. Well, I was going with actor names, but yes. Anyway, those two, their interactions were a lot of fun. He's always great in anything he acts in. He's a great actor. He was kind of young but confident, knew what he was doing. I mean, he was exactly what you need for this movie. Again, I can't compare and contrast here, but I thought he did great.
So, would you say if they did make a franchise, would you see him as a staple adventure hero like Indiana Jones or like those kind of characters?
I mean, it's kind of tough to compare to Indiana Jones, seeing as such a classic.
Indiana Jones, yeah.
And frankly, I can't really think of any other movies, maybe like The Mummy, that would kind of fall along those lines.
And National Treasure. And the Tomb Raider movies that they had.
I could see him falling in that line if they have a good series with it. I think he's good enough for that.
I liked Tom in this role. I think he's a great. I know I've seen him in other things that are not Spider-Man or Marvel movies. I'm trying to remember what any of them are.
We saw The Impossible. That was one.
But that was he was a little kid.
Oh gosh, that movie was crazy.
And so I'm trying to think of anything else that he's been in, but I think he played the character as far as I could tell fine. I thought he was entertaining. I liked like I said, the dynamic was fine. I think he's an amazing stunt guy. He does a lot of amazing things with that, and so I didn't have a problem with it. What about you? What did you think about it? Because you played the games.
A lot of people are hating on it because he's not this cocky, confident, joking person like he is in the games. But I didn't get that. I got a really fun, and he's young. This is like his first job. So of course he's going to not have that confidence and not be able to know. And people are like, he kept getting backstabbed. He should have known better. No, he shouldn't have. He didn't have that knowledge yet.
So if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong here, but when you see him in the game, he's already been working with Sully. He's already been an adventurer. He's already done all those.
Yeah, you can kind of put the games at about probably 5 or 6 years at least after this movie. So
in this, he's a bartender and he's a con man. He's not the same character. No. People grow, they change, and you can't have him start off as that character because then you don't have the opportunity to watch him grow and change.
I really loved what Tom did with Nathan. Honestly, it felt just like a young Nathan could be, and throughout the whole movie, I saw so many things. Now, next, Mark Wahlberg as Nathan. Victor Sullivan.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I'll explain that. Mark Wahlberg, when this movie was first
15 years
ago, was cast as Nathan Drake, but he aged out of the role by the time that they started filming, so they put him as Sully. Now, casting is getting absolutely ripped by fans.
Certain fans, not all.
Not all of the games. Now, y'all have no bias on this. So, did you enjoy the character, or did he just feel off to you?
No, I liked it. I thought he was great. I mean, I like Mark Wahlberg anyway. But,
oh my gosh! Yes.
But I think that he did great. The other side of this dynamic duo here, he was a lot of fun. I didn't trust him, but I also didn't think that he was like deliberately going out to try to hurt Nathan with it. He felt like a good character. I like the story, but again, I don't have the history with the franchises as they had.
Yeah, I thought he was a lot of fun. I mean, like you said, Mark Wahlberg is he's always fun, and he's unique in the way he portrays himself and all of his characters. But again, I think he was just a guy on another job, and he portrayed that well. It was all matter of fact about stuff, I thought it was great. Yeah, but I don't know what Sully.
What about you?
I loved him as Sully. There were so many moments, like some of the dad jokes. He made an exact dad joke that he made in almost every single one of the games that he was in. It was like when he was looking down a well and he just said, well. He does that in almost every single one of the games. It was a great little nod to that.
Why are fans struggling with Mark as Sully?
Because they think that he was too kind of cocky and too much of a jerk and all that stuff, which I didn't get. He was just on a job, and it's exactly like the Sully we see in the first game, honestly.
And he doesn't have the relationship with Nathan.
It's
the same thing that I was saying about Nathan needing to grow into that character. This relationship needs to grow. And so Sully he doesn't have the bond with it. It's probably the Sully you see at the very end.
Yeah, the Sully at the very end was really good and like super accurate, and I really don't get that. I mean, he had the mustache and everything and the cigar and all that. That's classic Sully. So it really worked out with what they did. Now, this next one, Sophia Ali as Chloe Fraser. Now, thoughts on this character, because she's super important to at least the second game.
Well, in this movie, she was fine, but she was a one-dimensional character. It was like she was there just to be there. She was as much of a plot device as the map or the ring. She was there just to be there and move the story forward. She didn't really have... I didn't understand the relationship with Sully. I didn't understand the history with the older brother, Sam. And maybe we're not supposed to understand any of those things yet, but that was the one part of this that I thought really struggled.
Yeah, I agree. That was the weak point for me. I mean, she was fine, like you said, but there was no real draw to her character. I mean, her shtick was backstabbing. Like that was it for most of it. And I know that from what I've gleaned from what you've said, that is her thing. But there was no like dimension to her. It was just, I'm here to backstab and promote myself.
Honestly, from what I've gotten from the games, I never really enjoyed her character. I know she's like a fan favorite character of the second one. I just thought that she was kind of annoying most throughout the second game. But like at the beginning, she meets up. Nate's all happy to see her again because, you know, they were an old flame, but she betrayed him. So he was nervous. And then again in the game, she betrays him again. It's kind of just like, okay, well,
that's just her role.
And then at the end, she made up, and they kind of just were like, okay, this is great. And so it felt really off. It felt like this movie. So honestly, really accurate character to the games. Now the next one, funny. Antonio Banderas as Santiago Moncada. Now, was this a good villain or not? Because I can't speak to this because this villain was not even mentioned in the game.
Yeah, he's for this movie. Yeah.
I mean, I thought he was, again, fine. Another great actor. I couldn't help but hear Puss in Boots the whole time. But I thought...
forgotten about that.
No, I think he was good. He was the very, super villain-esque Bond, not super villain, but the kind of villain you want in this. He's just... when like singular drive, I want the money. That's all that matters. Doing, willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And that was great. It was, the twist there of him. Spoilers. I guess we're just gonna go into spoilers.
Yeah, we already did.
The twist of him getting killed off. Frankly, I did not see that coming. So that was well done. Yet again, another backstab, though. This is just backstab the movie.
It's common in the Uncharted universe.
I thought he was great, though. I thought he did what he needed to do.
I was a little disappointed that they killed him off the way that they did. I thought he was a much better villain than the lady that ended up being the big baddie after that.
Barkada or some.
Yeah, I thought that she was just not a great villain with it. And I thought that he was, when he kills off his own father earlier on, I'm like, oh, this thing just got real.
Yeah.
And he was a fun character. Antonio Banderas
is an amazing actor.
Absolutely tremendous actor. And so to take him and get him only maybe 2/3 of the way through the film and actually have a really well done performance, that with a character that is a lot of interest to try to find out. I wanted more of the story of the family, the Moncada family, all this kind of stuff. I wanted to see him be the bad guy that goes on throughout the rest of the franchise, because I don't know that's not the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
So was it a surprise that he gets killed off? Yeah, but it was also a disappointment because he was a better villain than the villain that they actually had.
Yeah, he was fun, but they had to kill him off. And also the lady that killed him, she isn't even in the games either. So I don't know why they kind of kept her, but they killed her off too. So it doesn't matter.
We think
she had a ship dropped on her face. She's dead.
She's in David Jones' Locker.
Exactly. Now for the fun part, all the little Easter eggs that y'all didn't notice. The lighter that was given to Nate, the one that doesn't really work, is actually a big part of the fourth game.
I was wondering.
And it is used many times to solve puzzles between Sam and Nate, which is cool because it was Sam's lighter in that game. The ring that Nate wears is actually a huge part of the games and is the main plot device for the third game. It's the little key to everything.
So they're putting those pieces in now so that they can set that up for the franchise.
They are, yes. And the vest and that whole scene with it was practically a big nod to the fans. When he finally got the iconic look with the gun vest, the classic Uncharted theme from the games plays lightly in the background.
Oh, that's cool.
That was a really cool moment. That was awesome. Now, the overused cargo plane scene is actually ripped straight from the third game. Just it's over the sea in this movie and not a desert.
I liked the way that they opened the movie with that.
That is a classic Uncharted trope. Now, they did that with the first game and the fourth game. They started it with the end of, or at least a big climax of the game. Or no, it wasn't the first one. It was the second one.
Okay.
The big moment of those games, like in the second one, it was a train crash, and the fourth one is something, but it started with that, and then you eventually got to that point later on. So it's of course, another nod to Uncharted, and of course, Nolan North's cameo. That was awesome, cool. Man. I kind of cheered when I saw that. It was really cool to just see him show up, and of course, the Uncharted theme did play when we saw him as well. That was really cool. Now, should this movie get a sequel? And if so, what would y'all like to see in it as non-fans of the game?
I don't know if it's easy to answer the last part of that question, but as far as being able to get a sequel, absolutely should get a sequel. It's performed well in the box office, like we'll talk about in movie moments. But more importantly, it's set everything up for the story to continue. Now you have a trusting relationship between Nathan and Sully. You've got this established idea of treasure hunting. Is that basically Uncharted?
Oh yeah,
treasure hunting. Okay, so you've got that going forward. I think that the next movie can be better because you're not doing a whole lot of character development with it. You can just jump in there and have some kind of a big opening that has, they left it open for, Sam's alive, which I know that's a big part of the story. Now they just go and they find it, and you have more stuff with Sam, and you have some of these things happen. I think that would be it.
Yeah, this should absolutely get a sequel. I mean, it along the lines of Indiana Jones or National Treasure stuff. It did well enough and has the right...
I'm going to stop you, though. This is nowhere close to being on par with Raiders or Indiana Jones.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's got the feel of those kinds of movies. To where it would work for them to have a sequel, and I would enjoy seeing a sequel. We don't have any currently running adventure movie franchises right now, and those are really fun genre. So,
we're having a fifth Indiana Jones coming out at some point, but that's really it.
Yeah, and I mean, he's old. Let's just be honest. And there's nothing wrong with it, and I'm excited to see it. But it'll be nice to have something fresh.
The chase scenes will be a little hard, though.
Yeah. So I would definitely appreciate seeing a sequel. As to what we see, I don't know. I know I'm a little nervous because I watched you play a little bit of a game, and there was some weird monster thing. So there's a little bit of supernatural stuff in the universe.
Slightly. That was explained later on in the game, but it did deal with. It's like if you mix Uncharted is if you mix Indiana Jones with National Treasure and Pirates of the Caribbean and just mixed them into one. So you have the supernatural aspect of pirates with the Fountain of Life and all that kind of stuff, and the Davy Jones and all that. And then you mix in National Treasure with going to museums, finding artifacts, and then Indiana Jones with the adventure.
I think if they're able to weave that in naturally, I think that would make for a really interesting franchise.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and throw in a dad moment here.
I am your father.
I think my favorite part of this franchise is the relationship that drives it. The fact that Nathan Drake is pulled into this story because he wants to reunite with his older brother Sam. Honestly, it hits kind of close to home around here. It's clear that their relationship is a primary plot device throughout all of the game, just like in the film. What most of you guys that are listening to this right now don't really know is that Sam and Nathan aren't the sons given names. Sam is actually David Samuel and Nate is actually Jonathan Nathaniel. They just go by these shortened versions of their middle names. But the reason that their mom and I named them David and Jonathan was because we wanted to speak a relationship over their lives. And in the Bible, David and Jonathan are best friends. we wanted this to be true of Sam and Nathan too. And we thank God that it has happened. The bond of brothers is something very special. And I loved how that is a central plot point of this game series and the movie, and I want to see that going forward.
Yes, this was a super fun movie, and honestly, that's all it really needed to be. Highly recommend checking this one out in the theaters, and make sure to pick up the audiobook novelization narrated by Nolan North himself.
Wow,
awesome! Wow, Nolan North did the audio.
He did the
is it a bigger story? Has it got more plot?
It's a 9-hour long book.
That's interesting. Nice. Very cool. Well, we got some movie, or no, it's bad news, isn't it?
Yes.
I always get confused about that. Which part are we in? We're at bad news. Yeah. So we've got Captain Marvel's apparently not going to be played by Brie Larson anymore.
Really?
And Hugh Jackman is
another one of
absolutely,
these.
And Hugh Jackman is definitely going to be.
So the reverse of that. Okay.
Yeah, he's definitely back in Doctor Strange 2 as Wolverine. And then Kevin Feige has said that the Avengers franchise is over. That's all out next on Bad News.
This is not going to go the way you think.
So BB Nate was styling with some cufflinks.com.
I was
at Pensacon.
I was. I was wearing the Batman tie bar and the Batman socks. So yeah, of course I gotta rep that.
Yeah, you were the best looking guy at the entire thing. And I honestly think that your Court of Owls was stunning.
It was spot on.
Really good.
It was, if I don't say so myself.
Yeah, of course. But it was really just it fit perfectly to what I was hoping it would be.
It did. It looked great. But the other thing that's cool is we were getting ready to leave, and I was like, he better be wearing something Batman, because that helps kind of tie it all into this.
Exactly.
And everything else. So you had that tie bar and everything else on. And then Sunday, I don't think I wore any cufflinks.com yesterday. No, I didn't go yesterday because I had to stay home.
Well, I still did. I of course wore my Batman tie like I promised I would until the Batman came out.
There you go.
And Batman tie bar too, and Spider-Man socks. So yeah,
that's awesome. So you're just you're a crossover event.
Crossover, yeah.
Kind of like that Justice League of America or Justice League and
Avengers
crossover that's reprinting. Yeah. That's good. And if you like, again, cufflinks.com doesn't care if you like DC or Marvel or whatever. They're going to have whatever you guys are looking for on cufflinks.com. They got a ton of stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, they've got over 3,000 different items on there, and they got the tie bars. You can get one of the, if you want to recreate Nathan's cosplay,
you could do it.
Get it. We'll provide links. I was wishing
you
people
have to message us for that,
right?
Though.
I was hoping people would be like, "Who are you wearing?" And you can be like, cufflinks.com, like it was the red carpet, but that didn't happen. Anyway, they got all sorts of stuff for not just cufflinks, but the tie bars and the socks and the ties and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
yeah. And if you want to save money, you can use the code Tatooine15 at checkout to receive 15% off everything on the website with no minimum order required.
That's right. So it's a great deal with great products and a great company that we absolutely love. There are a couple of brothers that started this thing, and you okay over there, Sam?
Yep.
All right, and they're just an awesome company. They're doing a great thing. Check out cufflinks.com. Make sure you use that code Tatooine15 at checkout.
Well, you want the bad news? Or the really bad news?
All right, headline 1. Marvel announces they are replacing Carol Danvers this year. This is just classic clickbait form from Inside.
Was this the one I sent last week for the preparation?
InsideTheMagic.com. They released an article recently that tells the true story of Marvel's push to bring in a new version of Captain Marvel's alter ego character, Binary. And it is true. The new version will not be the same as the Carol Danvers version. So in reality, the headline's accurate. The problem is the image the website associates with the article is the cinematic version of Captain Marvel, not the comic book version, which is what they're talking about. And the entire headline jumps around from conversations about Brie Larson's portrayal and how people don't like Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. And then they switch back to the comic book version, and it's a big mess. This is intentionally deceptive. It's designed to make someone that's casually skimming the article believe that the MCU version of Carol Danvers is being replaced, which she isn't. So I'm giving this a clickbait level of 8.
Well, Hugh Jackman is returning as Wolverine for a Marvel project.
No way.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A Giant Freaking Robot is sourcing an article from Geekosity and claiming that Hugh Jackman is appearing in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. The Geekosity version is just a massive collection of like one sentence paragraphs where the website's owner claims he knows something, which kind of seems a little suspicious. But of course, the presence of Professor X in the latest Doctor Strange trailer means Wolverine could also be in the film.
Yeah,
but
that's possible.
Let's wait for a little bit more documentation before we get too excited. So this one gets a clickbait level 9.
All right.
Oh, yeah. And Kevin Feige.
It's Feige.
Yeah, Kevin Feige says Endgame marked the end of the Avengers franchise.
Wow.
Now, this headline seems very definitive, but when you look at the actual quote that epicstream.com is referring to, it seems much less final than the headline leads one to believe. The quote was sourced from the Eternals version of Marvel Studios Assembled, which we're really behind on. Not that we care about Eternals, but everything else.
No, I want to watch it, though.
Yeah, that would be fun to see the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Absolutely.
That released last week. What Feige says is Marvel Studios and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is now past their 10th anniversary, and with the release of the final Avengers movie, we finally completed a 22-movie Infinity Saga. The headline seems to suggest that the MCU is basically done, and that's how some casual readers have taken it. However, it most likely means we won't have any further films with the name Avengers in the title.
Yeah,
so
because
this gets a clickbait level of 8.
Because the MCU has moved past the
Iron
Avengers.
Man's gone. Captain America's gone.
Yeah, I mean, they may do a new Avengers movie or a young Avengers movie, but I don't know if it's going to be the old Avengers. And I think that's what he's basically saying on that. So clickbait level 8. Clickbait level 8. All right. Okay, well, it's been a while since we've done one of these segments, but with no new Star Wars content releasing this last week, I thought we could bring back our old Star Wars grab bag type segment. There's some fun news to discuss, including a prominent MCU director coming over to Star Wars and the return of the greatest composer of our generation.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
I think that the cosplay at Pensacon was just a little bit too ahead of its time. Don't you agree with me on that, the way people were reacting to it?
There were a lot of people that knew who you were.
Yeah, there were quite a few people. You got a lot of reactions with it, actually.
I don't know. I kind of got the feeling people were like, had no clue who I was.
No, if anything, I thought maybe mine was a little bit too early. Yours
is early, and people haven't seen the movie yet.
A lot of reaction. I mean, people were checking to make sure they were right, but they were like, "That's Cobb Vanth, right?" Or they were like, "That's the sheriff from Boba Fett." They at least were familiar enough with the character.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, if I'm going to shave my beard off,
it better be worth it. Yeah,
wanted it to be worth it, right? Well, let's do this. Let's jump into some of these headlines. Spider-Man director John Watts reportedly is in talks to direct an episode of a new Star Wars series. There's a new untitled Star Wars series in development, or at least rumored to be in development. It's going by the shooting title Grammar Rodeo. Don't know why. What that means, I'm trying to figure it out, but I can't. But anyway, and the director of the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, John Watts, is actually in talks to direct at least one episode of it. Multiple outlets have been sharing rumors about the series over the past few weeks. It's rumored that Jon Favreau will be leading the series, and that it is set in the High Republic era of the Star Wars timeline. It's also believed to be kind of a Stranger Things in space story featuring a younger generation of heroes. So let me start with you, BB Nate. You've been a pretty major fan of John Watts.
Yeah, I loved this work.
How do you feel about the possibility that he'll direct in a galaxy far away?
I'm excited. I think he would do fantastic. It's a new medium for him, just the sci-fi space, and especially with Star Wars. I know it's big and it's really daunting, but I think he can handle it after the reactions to Homecoming and Far From Home. But I really do think that it'll be exciting to see him take something on Star Wars. I'm sure he'd love to do it. And with the whole Stranger Things, that kind of plays into how he's fit in with the younger group in the MCU, the high schoolers. And so I think that he could fit in with that, especially during the High Republic era. He could do a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think John Watts is a very capable director. And from what we've seen so far, he knows how to deal with established characters, or somewhat established characters, but also work with some new ones because they introduced new characters. So I think he's going to do great. I'm excited for it. Yeah.
Okay, Sam, the storyline of the series, though, it's pretty different than anything we've heard of before. What do you think about the idea of Stranger Things in space?
I think initially, that sounds really, really interesting. But the issue is when you're dealing with younger characters, you gotta handle it the right way. Otherwise, it'll kind of come across cheesy and, for lack of a better term, Disney Channel-y. Which I'm sure he would do fine with it, and it'll work great because, like Nathan said, he did really well with the younger, generation in Spider-Man movies. So it'll probably work out fine. It's just a little bit of a slippery slope, but the concept sounds interesting.
Awesome. Cool. So next headline: Star Wars Rebels. This should get Nathan's ears to perk up.
It did.
Sure. It'll be receiving a trade paperback later this year.
What is trade paperback?
Like a graphic novel type thing, right?
Yes.
Kind of like that. Same format, right?
TPB.
A TPB later this year from Dark Horse Comics. So it was announced several months ago that Dark Horse Comics is returning to the Star Wars family of comic book publishers. And now we've learned that one of their first entries is going to be this Star Wars Rebels, TPB. Is that what that's called? I did it right? Okay. ScreenRant.com had this on there. They said Dark Horse Comics will be collecting a variety of comics from Star Wars Rebels magazine, including issues 1 through 35, issue 37 and 39, along with Star Wars Rebels Animation Magazine, issues 1 through 4. The feature comics were written by Jeremy Barlow, Alec Worley, Martin Fisher, and the art was by Robert Molesworth, Ingo Romling, Eva Weiderman, Irie Coleman, and Cosmo White. There haven't been many collections of the 43 comics from the two magazines, making this trade paperback particularly special. As the Ghost crew searches for the Rebel Alliance, they encounter pirates, creatures, and members from the Empire, and the collection releases on July 6th, and it will be $29.99. So that's all the information about that. Sam, what do you think this could tell us about these characters and their future in Star Wars storytelling that they're making this TPB come out?
Well, I mean, it makes me hopeful that we might see more, but I think for the most part, the story of the Rebels or the Ghost crew is over. They might with Ahsoka, they continue the story with Ezra and things, but I think comics will re-release and make new collections and stuff of old series all the time. So it doesn't necessarily indicate that they're doing something new with these characters or are planning on doing something new, but it is encouraging to see them still recognizing that they exist and making more of their story more accessible to general fans. Because I didn't even know these existed.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And now that they're in an easier to obtain format, it's certainly intriguing.
Yeah, it is really intriguing. I'm excited to see, not that Dark Horse and everything that they've done, even in the more recent collections they've released, they haven't meant anything. They've released a bunch of Legend stuff that have nothing to do with what we're going to be getting. So I don't think this means much for what we might see later on. Of course, we do know we're getting some more Rebels storylines being told with Ahsoka, but I don't think we'll be seeing the Ghost crew all together again. Honestly, I'd love to see it. The whole crew back in the Ghosts in live action would be an absolute dream for me. But just the fact that they're not letting these characters die off quite yet, because it's been years since they've really touched on them, is really cool. I'm excited about that.
Now, Nate, you're the comic book guy in the group. Are you interested in picking this up?
Relatively. I'm a little confused. They're collecting a lot of issues, which normally this would turn out to be a huge book, and yet it's so cheap. So I'm wondering if
it's like 12 pages per issue is what they're saying.
Yeah, so it's a really short book. Yeah, I mean, I'd really like to pick it up. It depends on, what else is coming out. I'm behind on a lot of things, but you
got caught up a little bit this week.
A little bit, yeah. I missed one, but honestly, I think that this itself would be a lot of fun to read, because I love Rebels, and it would just be fun to have more Rebels as I've always wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you can get more Ezra Bridger, you're going to be okay.
I'm going to be happy.
All right. More details are coming out about the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. Star Wars released a 3-minute behind-the-scenes look at the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser experience at Galaxy's Edge. Best part about it was that it featured the friend of the show of Tatooine Sons here, Matt Martin from Lucasfilm Story Group. The video reveals a number of interesting story points we hadn't heard before, including when the story takes place, which is between The Last Jedi and The Rise of the Skywalker, and that it will include many of the legacy characters from the sequels, including a confirmed meeting of Rey and Kylo Ren, the only one that takes place between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, and it's canon, is what they're saying. So, BB Nate, what are your thoughts on this last major nugget?
I'm not sure if how that's going to work into the canon, how it's going to tie into Rise of Skywalker and all of that stuff. It's really going to be confusing on how they pull that all together. But I'm worried. Of course, I want to see a big interaction between them. That'd be cool. It would make the whole experience really awesome. Maybe they both are on the same ship and they're fighting. It would be really cool to have that happen. But the problem is, I'm worried that since it might confuse the canon, it's going to be a super short little interaction, and then that's it. Like, they basically, Kylo Ren's outside the ship, Rey's inside. They have a little bit of a hologram little chat, and then that's it. And I'm worried that that's going to be how it goes. Of course, I trust that they're going to be doing everything right, because if Matt's helming this, and he knows what he's doing, he knows how to make this done right, and he does have a good amount of free reign if he does it well and they execute it correctly. So it's really just what they plan on doing with it that'll make this what it's supposed to be, or exciting in a way.
That's awesome. Sam, what do you think about the idea of Rey and Kylo Ren meeting up again in canon?
Yeah, that's really exciting. I mean, it makes the experience more special for the guests, because they're getting a bit of story that nobody else gets to have. I mean, they paid a lot of money for this experience, so it makes sense that they would get some story points that you can't get anywhere else.
That's awesome. We also learned in this that the Halcyon, the Galactic Star Cruiser, is a High Republic era cruiser that's actually been restored to its original condition, and now it's reenacting its original travel route, which went through Batuu in the High Republic era. Sam, how do you feel about tying in the High Republic and the sequel era all into one big bow here?
I love it. It makes Star Wars that one cohesive story. I mean, so far, High Republic is pretty not segmented, but it's kind of separated right now, and it's only really in publishing and stuff. And so frankly, we haven't really branched into it very much. I know there's all sorts of products for it at the moment, but we just haven't been able to get into it. So this is another way to make it accessible or to introduce it to new people, because some people just straight up may not even know that timeline exists right now. So it's encouraging to see them use it more and more and tie it in all throughout the saga. So I'm hoping we see more of it, honestly.
Yeah, I'd like to see more of it too. I think that it's well done to be able to tie it to High Republic, because then that makes that important to the rest of the series, and maybe just it could introduce people into it. But I also think that it might be slightly dangerous. The problem for us with the High Republic is it is so hard to get into right now. There is just so much.
Yeah, if you're really behind, you feel like you're never, it's not even worth diving in.
There's so much to get into. There are so many different mediums that they're putting it on, where they have don't they have like audio drama specific stuff, and then they have
no, I don't.
I think that they might have put one.
So. No.
I don't know. I think that it might be in production or something. I don't know. But you have the books, and then you have the comics, and then you have the Galactic Star Cruiser comic line that they're doing, which doesn't even seem like it would be tied to High Republic, but it is. So there's so many things that are all over the board. It's hard to get into. So I'm worried that if they mention things from the High Republic, it won't make sense to the people that have just such a difficult time and to get into it, because it does take a lot of effort to be able to fully get into the whole timeline.
That's a really good point you're making there, BB Nate. It is tough to get into High Republic right now. All right, last one. John Williams has returned to compose the theme for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Several news outlets confirmed last week that the maestro, John Williams, secretly conducted a recording of a new theme for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series premiering on May 25th of this year. Of course, Williams composed the scores for all 9 of the Skywalker saga films. He returned to compose and conduct the themes for Solo: A Star Wars Story and all the music for, or the theme at least, for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Sam, how fortunate are we to be able to continue to get new Star Wars scores from the greatest living composer of a generation?
Oh, it's hugely exciting. I mean, John Williams and his music, in a way, made Star Wars the success it is. And not only Star Wars, but not hundreds, but many other very successful film franchises had his music behind it. Some of the best themes in all of cinema have his name attached to it. So having him come back to compose a theme for such a beloved character is really exciting too. I know you were very excited when he returned for Solo.
Absolutely,
and he
yes.
created an absolutely fantastic theme for Solo.
He did.
It fit the character perfectly. So we're going to be getting a really, really good theme for Kenobi. And themes are important in Star Wars. The Mandalorian has a very iconic theme, and Boba Fett now has a very iconic theme from the series. So giving Kenobi his own iconic theme is really important right now.
It is really important, and I think that I love how they're bringing John back and not just giving it off to somebody else. I mean, people might ask why he didn't come back to do Boba Fett's theme, but I really just don't think that Boba Fett was a big enough character to do that. But at least they
didn't do it with Mando.
Well, true, but Mando wasn't an established character in the Skywalker saga. So, but I do think that Ludwig did an amazing job with both Mando and Book of Boba Fett's theme, or Boba Fett's theme.
Mm-hmm.
So I am excited that he's coming back for this. Now, John Powell did an amazing job on Solo, but John Williams really did a fantastic job
Michael
with his
Giacchino.
theme.
Giacchino,
whatever.
Giacchino, yeah, but
he did for Rogue One.
He did, yes, of course he did for Rogue One. I was just talking about the theme that John did, but we've listened to the Han theme so many times. It is a fantastic theme, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do for Kenobi in this new series, because it's a different thing to take on, because he's in a totally different state that he was in a long time ago. So do you make a theme for who he was, or do you make a theme for who he is now?
That's
on
good.
Tatooine and all that stuff.
That's interesting. BB Nate, both you and Sam are obsessed with film scores and their composers. It's something that you guys love. If you could choose one composer to carry on John Williams' legacy, or if you could say one composer is the successor to John Williams, who would you choose and why?
Yeah, both Sammy and I agree on this, but I do think that Michael Giacchino is the this generation's John Williams. He has done so many amazing and recognizable themes and soundtracks, and when you think about it, if you look down the road in 20 years, you're still going to know those themes that he did.
Yep.
You're still going to know the incredible soundtrack, Ratatouille. You're going to know Married Life from Up. That is just a insanely recognizable soundtrack. There's so many things that he's done that could be fantastic. And then he did Rogue One, and that is an amazing soundtrack. They just released the expanded edition a couple weeks ago, which is already an accomplishment in and of itself. Not many film scores get that. And so it's really amazing that he was able to do all of that. And I do think that his style is very similar to John, but just kind of a modern John, because he's still using new instruments and new techniques, but still has a classic orchestral feel to it.
Yeah, I think Nathan hit all the points. I said, a few weeks ago that he is the John Williams of this generation. He, again, like John, has done so many hit films with hugely recognizable soundtracks, but he's not a replacement to John. John has his style, and it is pretty much one thing. It's the big orchestral, very classical kind of soundtracks, and it's phenomenal. Michael, he can do that, but he is a little bit more diverse. I mean, you look at Incredibles, and then you look at Up, and then you look at Ratatouille, and they're all completely different. But then you have Rogue One, and it's very much like a Star Wars soundtrack. Yeah. So he's very diverse in what he can do, and like you said, Nate, pretty much every soundtrack he touches is gold.
It is.
So if you hire him, you're going to be getting a good soundtrack.
That's awesome. Well, the most amazing thing about all of this that we've talked about is that we've just been able to talk about the tip of the iceberg compared to all of the amazing Star Wars content that's coming out in the next couple of years. It's going to be a lot of fun just to sit back and take it all in. So very exciting stuff. So, all right. We got some movie moments coming up. We've got Peter Dinklage playing Cyrano. That's going to be really interesting. We've got the Foo Fighters in a horror movie and some box office stuff coming up. So that's all up next on Movie Moments.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
All right, for the new releases this week, we have Cyrano. It is a man ahead of his time, Cyrano de Bergerac. I think I got that right. Dazzles, whether with a ferocious wordplay at a verbal joust or with brilliant swordplay in a duel. but convinced that his appearance renders him unworthy of the love of a devoted friend, the luminous Roxanne, Cyrano has yet to declare his feelings for her, and Roxanne has fallen in love at first sight with Christian.
Aww.
The director is Joe Wright. The cast is Peter Dinklage, Halle Bennett, and Kelvin Harrison Jr. The studio is United Artists and is rated PG-13 for some strong violence, thematic and suggestive material, and brief language. Going yes or no?
I'm gonna let Sam go first on this one. You've seen the trailers for this, right?
No.
Nope.
Yeah, we've seen it in a movie we saw.
Nope.
No.
Okay.
No
Maybe
idea
y'all
what
did
this
for
is.
Marry Me.
Yeah. What is this like a retelling of a classic tale?
Absolutely.
Okay, so like
very classic play.
like Zorro kind of idea, or sort of
More like
Shakespearean
level.
Oh, yeah.
I got that from the names.
I mean, it sounds okay to me. Not my cup of tea. I mean, if we went to go see it, I'd probably find it interesting. I don't have a trailer to base this off of. Sounds like it has. I mean, I'm not sure who Kelvin Harris Jr. is, but the first two names, those are fairly big actors. But it just kind of sounds like another like Princess Bride without the best parts of Princess Bride.
Yeah, I know. I definitely want to see this. It looks really good. The trailer looks really, really good.
Yeah, I got to watch
the big difference though is in the original story, the Cyrano character is his appearance is he's got a like massive nose.
Oh,
so he's got I think
I've heard
like
of
a
that,
distorted level,
like Pinocchio.
like a Pinocchio level nose. And in this one, they're twisting it and making it Peter Dinklage and him being a dwarf.
Right.
And being short. And so I think it's an interesting idea. And I think Peter Dinklage is playing a character that's not a comic store style character and a real dramatic thing makes it really interesting.
Yeah,
to me. I definitely want to see it.
Really interesting. I got to watch the trailer though to decide if I'm going or not. This next one. All right. Studio 666. In Studio 666, the legendary rock band Foo Fighters move into an Encino mansion steeped in grisly rock and roll history to record their much anticipated 10th album. Once in the house, Dave Grohl finds himself grappling with supernatural forces that threaten both the completion of the album and the lives of the band. What is this movie? Okay. The director is B.J. McDonnell. The cast is, of course, the Foo Fighters.
And a lot of other actors.
The studio is open road and it is rated R for strong, bloody violence and gore, pervasive language, and sexual content. Now, I don't think I need to ask if we're going to this or not, but I'm going to anyways. Yes or no?
I don't think we'd go to it if it was PG-13 because it's just weird.
It's just, it feels like they were like one day like, this album might not sell. Let's make a movie. And so it really just feels off. It feels like they were trying to do something that's been done before. I feel like I've heard of this concept somewhere else. Yeah. But it's strange.
What do you think, Sam? I mean, not that we would see it, but what do you think about it?
It is weird. I mean, if you're a fan of the Foo Fighters, I guess, go for it.
Or a fan of horror.
Or,
if you're a horror movie person, this is the season. It's weird. I don't understand why February
and January are the months for really weird horror movies.
Yeah,
really?
But that's
they always
common.
are.
Yep.
They're normally the really bad ones too. So
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
With it.
All right.
And for the exciting part of this segment, the box office numbers. Now, Uncharted overperformed this weekend with a $51 million domestic and $139 million worldwide. Wow. Fantastic opening for that movie. In second place is Dog with an $18 million domestic and an $18 million worldwide.
Which means it didn't get released
worldwide. Mm-hmm. And Spider-Man No Way Home still made $8 million in domestic with a $1.8 billion worldwide. Now, this will not cross $2 billion, but that is really close and something that they should be very proud about.
If they could figure out how to get it released in China.
Yeah, Batman beat them to that.
Yeah.
It beat Avatar, right?
It did, yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah, its domestic is higher than Avatar. It's in the third place for the highest domestics of all time.
Wow.
Force Awakens is ahead of it, right?
I think it's Force Awakens and Endgame. Yeah.
Wow.
With that.
That's incredible.
All right, Sam, what are you talking about here?
Yeah, well, Amazon's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is an ambitious undertaking, to say the least. They've certainly put their money behind it, but what is it about exactly? So we'll discuss all the information we have right now and what we can expect to see in the series.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets.
Your coming to us is as the footsteps of doom.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
Are you guys with the story before?
No, yeah, not really familiar at all.
Dad, you would be more familiar than me.
No, I'm not really familiar with it at all. In fact, what I understand is that this is based off of stories that were like tagged on the end of the Lord of the Rings books, but they were like a supplemental material that they were trying to understand or whatever.
Yeah, so Tolkien, his thing wasn't as much writing stories. I mean, he did love writing stories, but his main joy was writing mythology and history behind the world. He loved world building. And so in the Lord of the Rings novels, he put on some appendices detailing a little bit of the history of Middle Earth and the world and everything. And then there's the Silmarillion and things. But from what I've heard, due to a bunch of weird licensing rules that they've got right now, they can't do anything from the Silmarillion, and they can only talk about what was referenced in the Lord of the Rings novels, not in The Hobbit or the Silmarillion, because that's owned by the Tolkien estate. And then they can't directly reference anything in the Peter Jackson films because that's owned by
Warner Brothers.
So they have this weird gray area where they're able
So what are they allowed to talk about?
They're allowed to talk about the history that's discussed in Lord of the Rings novels, but what that does actually is it frees them up quite well to tell their own story. It'll still fit within the Peter Jackson films storyline, but I mean, there can't be like overt direct references to things in that. Like I don't know if we'll see Gandalf show up or anything. Actually, yeah, he's around at this point, but
interesting.
So yeah, there's this weird gray area. But before we go any further, let's get a little bit of a plot synopsis going, so we kind of have an idea of what the story is. Prime Video's The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power brings to the screens for the very first time the heroic legends of the fabled Second Age of Middle-earth's history. This epic drama is set thousands of years before the events of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and will take viewers I jumped around. We'll take the viewers back to an era in which great powers were forged, kingdoms rose to glory and fell to ruin, unlikely heroes were tested, hope hung by the finest of threads, and the greatest villain that ever flowed from Tolkien's pen threatened to cover all the world in darkness.
Dun, dun, dun.
Beginning in a time of relative peace, the series follows an ensemble cast of characters, both familiar and new, as they confront the long-feared re-emergence of evil to Middle-earth. From the darkest depths of the misty mountains to the majestic forests of the elf capital of Lindon, to the breathtaking island of Numenor, to the furthest reaches of the map. These characters and kingdoms will carve out the legacies that live on long after they're gone. So both a lot and not a lot at the same time.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so right off the bat, though, what do you guys think about this synopsis, the idea that we've got for this story?
It sounds really interesting. I'm loving the Sauron stuff. I'm super excited to see him rise to power. I'm excited to see how the rings are forged, because we're definitely going to be able to get that at some point in the series. It's not going to be just one season. So we'll definitely see how that happens. I'm super excited to see Galadriel and Elrond as a young characters, because we haven't seen that all that much, and we don't know about them a lot. We didn't get them much at all, and their backstory at all, really, in Lord of the Rings, at least in the movies that we watched. So I'm super excited to see what we're going to be getting with them, and even the new characters, the original characters. I'm wondering how they're going to play out and be in this series, because they have, like you said, Sammy, free reign. So I'm excited to see how that turns out.
I'm excited because it references the last alliance of elves and men, which they tease that. They talk about that in the Lord of the Rings trilogy about when men and elves were in alliance, and we see some, like especially in the director's cut, we see moments where this is
that
happening.
beginning battle is the last alliance,
and that's a really intriguing thing because they are so opposed to each other in the Lord of the Rings movies and in the story of the Lord of the Rings, and so not opposed, but they're not friendly,
right?
With each other. The only human that they're really friendly with is Aragorn, that the elves are friendly with,
right?
At that point. So I'm curious to see that whole story. I want to see what happens with Numenor, which is the kingdom that's there. So all of those things are really interesting. I just don't know how they're going to navigate this narrow passage that they have for it.
Honestly, I'm not sure how they did this. If they're having problems with Warner Brothers and all that stuff, I mean, how were they able to use the exact sound bite from
I
the
may
first
have
movie?
Misread it, or it may have been misinformation or something.
I think what you're talking about, Sammy, is Warner Brothers still has the film rights. They have the rights to be making the films for Lord of the Rings, and they showed that a couple days after the Lord of the Rings trailer was released, The Rings of Power. They talked about that with the anime that they're doing, the War of Rohirrim.
Yeah.
They released the date for that and a couple images. So they still have the film rights to it. Just Amazon cannot make a film for Lord of the Rings. So I think that they can touch on stuff from the movies if they, of course, pay them the right amount of money. It's just like royalties.
It's very similar to what's happened between Sony and Marvel at this
exactly
point.
Right. Yeah. It's just it's a different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because
So let's get into some of the characters that we can expect to see in this series. First off, like you had mentioned, Nathan, there is Galadriel. Obviously thousands of years before we see her in even The Hobbit. She's played by Morfydd Clark. She's the elven ruler of Lothlorien and the commander of the Northern armies.
And she seems really cool in the series.
I mean, I don't think any of us really expected this character to be a warrior at any point. Because she's always just kind of sitting there being all pretty. And
that's been controversial too, like her being in armor and things like that. People have been very upset about that.
She was made apparent in the books that she was a warrior.
Well, people are not happy with the portrayal of her.
I think she's going to be great. And then we have High King Gil-galad. Played by Benjamin Walker, the elven ruler of Noldor, who in the books founded the last alliance of elves and men alongside the Númenórean warrior Elendil. So just another elven ruler that we didn't see previously in the story, so we can probably expect that he died. We have Prince Durin IV, played by Owain Arthur, who hails from the dwarf realm of Khazad-dûm, which is seen in ruins in Jackson's Fellowship of the Rings.
Is that where the cave troll, or no?
That's Moria.
Khazad-dûm
is. Oh man, I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
Anyway,
is that like the ending?
No, I don't think so. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, it's not a huge deal. But again, we're getting more of. This is already building up some of the lore. Durin sounds familiar. We got Durin. That name should sound familiar. Again, I'm not as versed in the lore as I should be.
I think that's Gimli's ancestor.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So we're getting that, and then we've got Disa. This is an original character played by Sophia Nomvedi. Is a dwarven princess and the first female dwarf from Tolkien's fantasy series portrayed on screen. As this new character, Nomvedi is also the first black woman to play a dwarf, which is pretty exciting. Now this is where a lot of the controversy is lying now.
With her?
And I don't think it's because she's the first black woman or anything like of that realm of things. It's, if you remember, I think it's in the Two Towers, when Gimli and Legolas are sitting there having a drinking game, or somewhere around there, he's talking about how dwarven women are almost indistinguishable from dwarven men because they've got beards and stuff, right? And obviously, if you've watched the trailer or seen the character posters, She has no beard. She's clearly distinguishable from a dwarf man. And that's really upsetting a lot of fans, much like how Star Wars fans get when something's just a little bit off from what they're expecting. I think it's fine. This is thousands of years before. They could have started growing their beards out. I'm sure, beauty standards change just like they do in our world over just hundreds of years. So, maybe they do have to shave every day to keep up their appearance, but they just stopped because I don't know. That's true. But I don't think it's as big of a deal as everybody's making it out to be. It's not, really. I think it's interesting. I think it's cool that we've finally seen a female dwarf because it's kind of weird. We hear about them all the time, but we never get to see it. And I have a feeling she's going to play a pretty big role.
Yeah, I think so, right. I think you're right.
What are y'all thoughts on this character, just from what your initial thoughts? When you
I think just the fact that we have, a female dwarf is going to make it an interesting character. I think it's a pivotal moment in the history of the franchise on film or on live action because she is, a black woman playing a dwarf in this, and so I think that that's important because we haven't seen that kind of a thing in Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit previously. So that's awesome. With it, I think that people just, need to lay aside their headcanon and not make decisions on shows before they've actually seen them.
Exactly. I think that we just need to give it some time because didn't the Dwarf Kingdom kind of fall a little bit at some point?
Everything fell.
Yeah. I think you're right because
honestly, they could have changed. So there's a lot that can happen. And I think that we just need to let this be what it is. It's set so far in advance. It's like watching a High Republic show before the Star Wars. Things have changed from High Republic. Yeah. And that's only 200 years before Phantom Menace. So can't imagine thousands.
Yeah. This one's also pretty neat. This one's Arondir, I believe I'm saying that right, is played by Ishmael Cruz Cordova. This is a Sylvan elf who was created for the series. He's the first non-white elf portrayed on the screen,
which is also cool.
Also, he had probably the coolest scene in the entire trailer, where he caught a flying arrow and then shot it back.
It was awesome.
I mean, Nate,
oh my gosh, I freaked out. That was awesome.
Yeah,
I was at the Super Bowl party and I'm like, no freaking way that they just did that. That was great. I loved it.
It seems like he's going to be the Legolas of this.
Yeah, that's where I was like sold on. This is Lord of the Rings. That shot right there.
You like the guys with the bows and arrows.
I like guys with bows and arrows.
They're cool.
Legolas was cool. Hawkeye is cool.
That's cool.
The next character is Halbrand, played by Charlie Vickers. Another new character is he's a mortal fugitive running from his past.
So Aragorn light.
Well, maybe
he looks exactly like him too. It's scary.
Is it that character?
It is.
Yeah. So again, more another character for that, and then we have, of course, Elrond, played by Robert Aramayo. He's a half-elf and politically ambitious young leader and architect who rises to prominence in the elven capital of Lindon.
Half-elf?
That was news to me as well. I think that had been established before. I can't remember.
So who's he to judge Aragorn? And maybe that's what he's connected. Why he's connected to Aragorn later on. Aragorn, whatever. Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings movies, because he feels connection to him on the human side with it.
Yeah, I don't remember how that.
But isn't that his daughter?
Yes,
I get confused. I haven't watched him recently. I need to.
Yeah, Aragorn's love interest, I forget her name. Arwen. Arwen is the daughter of Elrond.
Okay.
But yeah, that was news to me that he was a half elf as well. So that's interesting. Yep. We have Bronwyn, played by Nazanin. I really should have.
Nazanin?
What do you think?
I'm going to go Nazanin Boniadi.
Boniadi?
Yeah, that sounds right.
She's a healer and single mom who runs her own apothecary and lives in Tirharad. Yeah. That's a new one. A human village located south of Gondor and Mordor. Arondir is her forbidden love.
So he's the fugitive.
No. Arondir is the elf. The elf.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, when I saw pictures of this Bronwyn character, she was in the same kind of a hut as the brown wizard from Hobbit. It looks very similar at least, and she had a bunch of animals and stuff. And so that's cool that they're kind of. I know she isn't a wizard. I'm not saying that, but it just seems like they're bringing in that kind of.
Apothecaries can use in these types of stories, they're using potions.
Yes, exactly.
Things like that. So That's cool.
Yeah, and then this one was really exciting to me because I'll explain why in a second. But we've got Celebrimbor.
Really? He's in this?
Yeah, played by Charles Edwards.
Wow.
He's the Elven Smith who forges Sauron's Rings of Power.
That is awesome.
Now, why this is exciting for me is I've played Shadow of Mordor, and I still need to finish Shadow of War. Obviously, these aren't exactly canon, and especially when
but they're built off the lore.
Right.
Yeah.
And in that, Celebrimbor is kind of like a wraith that's mixed with you. It's weird, but he's
Very
a really
cool.
interesting character, and we get the backstory, a little bit of him making the ring. So I'm excited to see how they interpret this story and what his character is like.
Awesome.
And then we have Isildur, which should sound really interesting, as a sailor from Numenor who will eventually cut the One Ring from Sauron's hand.
And become the king.
And become the king, as you see in the beginning of the Lord of the
Fellowship of the Ring, yeah.
Yeah. And then this one's new, and it's got an interesting thing that we'll discuss. Eleanor Nori Brandyfoot.
It's a Brandyfoot. That sounds like a hobbit to me.
Yeah. Markella Kavanaugh, a new character. This is a new character and one of the Hobbit ancestors referred to as Harfoots. Now, what are Harfoots? Now, it's kind of vague. There's really not a whole lot of information on them, but they're kind of like a sort of evolutionary precursor to hobbits in a way. They're referenced by Tolkien, but there's really not much detail on them. But they're gonna, in this story, they're gonna kind of help to serve as a sort of everyman.
It's very similar to the
much
hobbits.
like the hobbits in the Lord of the Rings. They're the characters that we as viewers are able to relate to. They're common. They don't have any special abilities. They're just kind of there along for the ride, witnessing things as we are. So that this is just going to be a way for the audiences to better relate to the story. I don't think there's any problem with it. Of course, fans are getting
So when I said when we talked about the trailers on the last episode that there were hobbits in this,
I
was basically right
and wrong.
I was basically right.
You were right and wrong.
I was basically right.
Yeah.
I've heard it both ways.
And then we've got Sir Lenny Henry. I don't think that's his character name. Probably not. Anyway, there's no cast name on it, but he's a Harfoot elder, so we know that there's going to be multiple Harfoots.
Probably the narrator of the trailer.
Is it going to be Harfoots or Harfeet?
Oh,
it's Harfoots. Yeah,
it's Harfoots.
And then lastly, Daniel Wayman will play the stranger.
It's Sauron. It's definitely Sauron.
You think that's Sauron?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think you're right, because in the Silmarillion, in this story, he actually, which is funny because this is kind of the Satan character almost in Lord of the Rings. He portrays himself as this beautiful, handsome attaché. He comes to the elves,
like an angel of light, huh?
Right? And he's like, "Hey, I have this proposition." Goes to Celebrimbor. They make the rings, and lo and behold, they were tricked.
Yeah, this is definitely.
So I didn't make that connection, so that's a really good point, Nate.
Oh, right as they haven't given details and call him the stranger. Yeah, that's Sauron. 100% Sauron. All right.
Yeah, I mean, we can... So there's some things we can definitely expect to see. One of which is the tale of Numenor. Now, in the movies, we hear about Numenor all the time, and the Numenorians. We know Aragorn is the last descendant of Numenor.
Wow.
But we don't know exactly why, and that's because back in this story, Numenor eventually fell into the ocean.
So it's like the Atlantis of the Hobbits, of the Lord of the Rings universe.
In a way.
Aquaman just makes an appearance.
Well, I don't mean it from that. No, I'm just like the legend of
I get
Atlantis.
it. Yeah.
Right, yes, exactly. But they know it was true because they have history and things like that. But we can plan to see that. Now, Numenor at the time was a highly wealthy and advanced kingdom, and the men that lived there, or the humans that lived there, were special. They were granted long life, and they were taller and stronger, which is why Aragorn, he looks super young for his age and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So we'll get to see that. We'll see the last alliance of elves and men,
especially with
again,
Isildur,
but from the different side of things, which will be really exciting. And then, of course, the main point of this series, we're going to see the forging of the rings that is referenced. Now, there are a few concerns that arise with this, one of which is we're trying to synthesize down thousands of years of mythology into one story taking place at one time. In Tolkien's works, these timelines are set over a few hundred years.
Thousands.
Right. I mean, they are spread out significantly just because he has huge time jumps in everything he does, because he's able to. That's kind of tough to do in a TV show because you don't want to kill off characters between each season and have a 400-year time jump. So they're going to have to adjust.
They're changing the story, yeah.
Which, of course, is going to be controversial for some. Going to work well for other people.
Like us.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to love it. This is also the most expensive TV series ever made.
Yikes.
It is about $450 million for season 1. That is huge. They're really banking on this.
I've literally heard that it's committed to 5 seasons, and it could be in the billions of dollars.
Just think this one season of this show is 4.5 of the budgets for Batman.
The movie,
insane.
yeah.
That's
insane.
crazy.
Yeah. So do you guys think that it can endure beyond even just one season?
I do. I really think that it can. I think that they're riding a lot on this, but they understand that if they have a good show that can take the world, they've already had a show that has taken the world by storm with Invincible. That stole the internet for a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah,
you saw it everywhere.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know about it until the internet blew up with everything about it.
That's
and then
fair.
we're like, let's watch it. So we did, and then I fell in love with it. So I think that this is already riding on the IP of Lord of the Rings. And if they do well enough with this show, they definitely can make the profit, I guess, of being able to do more.
Here's my concern. It's already controversial coming out because of headcanon, and the more passionate a fan base is, the more likely they're to react negatively when things don't go the way that their headcanon is. I mean, we've lived in Star Wars fandom for 5 years now, like fully steeped in it in every way, shape, or form. We've experienced this.
It can get ugly.
The Lord of the Rings fandom is just as passionate about this, and they
have backstory,
and they have the backstory.
Star Wars they're making it up as they go,
right? And so the concern is, if the first season is so controversial or doesn't get the response that they wanted, do they not continue it because it's so expensive?
Yeah.
What's the point if the ratings tank because people are upset about it? That's a concern for me.
It is a concern.
I'm concerned about it too. I of course hope it succeeds and it becomes a worldwide phenomenon,
Absolutely.
much like Game of Thrones, which is another concern. But it is a big gamble they're taking on it. And then there was this worry for a while about them going kind of Game of Thrones with it being overly violent and overly sexual and things like that. And a lot of the fans were passionate about it and said that goes against Tolkien's vision. And the producer, I believe, or the director, some high-level executive has actually addressed those concerns and said they will not be going down that route whatsoever. This show is aimed at 11 to 13-year-olds, which is perfect because that's basically what Tolkien wrote The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings for. They were bedtime stories for his kids. So that's, very encouraging to people like us because
And the show's already confirmed to be TV-14. That was confirmed with the trailer. So we have no worries of it being a soft TVMA or anything like that. It is TV-14. So that's good too.
Yeah,
it's good.
Overall, though, what are your guys? Are you excited for this series? Cautiously optimistic? I mean, where are you guys standing with it right now?
Cautiously optimistic is a good way of putting it. I'm excited to see it, but I'm really worried that some things will just feel off. And then if it doesn't overperform, that they'll just drop it. Even if I love it, I don't have a say. I can't call up Amazon and be like, please make season 2 of the most expensive show ever made. So I can't, it won't do anything. So I'm worried about that too.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I'm getting more and more excited about it.
Don't get me wrong. I am excited.
Yeah. I think that this is going to be great. I think that, that it comes out at a great time. I think it's fun to be able to have, Lord of the Rings content, new Lord of the Rings content to be talking about because it's a series of films and stories that we love. And I mean, your segment always opens with Lord of the Rings level, content. So we actually get to talk about some new stuff. So I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. Well, this series is shaping up to be epic in just about every sense of the word. If it's executed well, this show will further deepen the lore of the Lord of the Rings film/TV world and give fans even more amazing content from Tolkien's works. The series is set to release Friday, September 2nd, 2022, so we've still got a while to wait, but that means more trailers and stuff. So.
Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
Yeah, John Krasinski announced that A Quiet Place Part 3 is in the works during, he announced this during Paramount's Investors Day, with a scheduled release date in 2025.
Yes. That's a long ways away.
I think we're getting that spin-off, though, in between. So.
Hope so.
Cool.
I hope so, yes. And Dune Part 2 is scheduled to start filming later this summer, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
Super
Can't
excited
wait for that.
And for me, it's Nobody's star Bob Odenkirk says that signs point to yes for a sequel
What is it,
to
like a Magic
Nobody.
8-Ball?
Well, yeah. I'm glad he's doing okay, though. He had that big medical scare a couple months ago, and so I'm glad that he's back to health, and I would love to see that. I'm sure.
I'm excited about that. It was a fun movie to watch.
It was a lot of fun.
With it. All right, Friday, make sure you check out the episode with Dominic Pace, Gecko the Bounty Hunter.
Yes, sir.
Yes, officially.
From The Mandalorian, officially a licensed canon Star Wars character. We're excited about him. Yeah, it's an awesome thing. And thank you, cufflinks.com, for sponsoring the show. We definitely appreciate that. And for all of you listening, thank you so much for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast.
Yes, if you had a good time listening, it would be awesome if you could share this with your friends.
Yeah, and don't forget that the show, it's only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world. So if you want more, be sure to like us on Facebook and join our Facebook discussion group, and follow us on Twitter to get in on all the action. And then you can keep up to date on everything we've got going on at TatooineSons.com.
That's right. Make sure you follow the show on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss our next episode. And then drop us a review if you could on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podchaser.com or wherever you listen in to your podcasts. All right. Anything else you guys would like to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Join, please.
Yep, yep.